I'm Extreme Dude, and welcome to the Extreme God Story. Aw, sweet! Hey Akila, can you read our verse for today?
I would love to read our Bible verse today. It comes from the book of John, chapter 20, verse 31. It says, "But these are written that you may believe that Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of God, and that by believing you may have life in His name." Wow, that's awesome. Back to you, Extreme Dude.
Dude, that's super cool. Well, I'm totally excited today because, I woke up this morning and my toes were sticking out of my socks. Crazy, right? So, I heard Pastor Tony's going to be teaching about holy socks. You know, like socks with holes in them. So, Pastor Tony, can you help me figure out how to wear my socks? How to wear holy socks? Extreme Dude, we're not learning about holy socks. Oh my word, Extreme Dude. We are learning today though that God is the Holy One. That's a completely different kind of holy. It's not poking your toes through your socks. Holy means to be set apart, and God is the Holy One, calling us to be holy, set apart. You see, we're going to be learning in the big God story today. That's our Bible. And in the back of your Bibles are a bunch of letters who were written by the apostles. One of those letters was written by a guy named Peter. Do you remember Peter? Peter was one of the disciples that Jesus called to follow him, and Jesus trained him and raised him up, and he was even there when Jesus came back to life. And Peter was one of the first people who preached the gospel and saw the church in the book of Acts grow. Now, over time, the church, the Jews, were being persecuted. In fact, the Roman government was scattering them all over the place because they didn't like their belief system. And so all of a sudden, people like, we learned about Priscilla and Aquila, were being sent from Rome to other cities. And people were suddenly waking up and having to move from one town to the next, from one province or state to the next, from one country to the next. Imagine waking up and looking around you, and everything is different. The people are different, the way they talk is different, even their holidays are different. That's what was happening back then. So Peter, he wrote a letter called 1 Peter. Now this letter he wrote and gave it to a messenger, and that messenger would take it to a city and read it to the Christians there, those that were being exiled or in different places. And then they might take a copy of it, and then he would go to the next town and he'd read it to them, and they might take a copy and continue on until this letter went to all kinds of different places. And so we're going to start reading in 1 Peter chapter 2. It says this in verse 11. "Dear friends, I urge you as foreigners and exiles to abstain from sinful desires which wage war against your soul." Okay, so remember what he said here, foreigners and exiles. It was like if you're living in a place that's not your home. That's how the Christians were living. This was to them. And he was telling them to abstain or to stop doing any kind of sin. Well, what does he mean by that? Well, remember, God is the Holy One. So let's look in chapter 1 and let's see. In verse 14, it says, "As obedient children, do not conform to the evil desires that you had when you lived in ignorance, but just as He who called you is holy, so be holy in all that you do." In other words, there's a desire within us to do sinful things, but God is holy. He's the Holy One. He's calling us to be holy, to be set apart and to make the right choices. Let's read that again and then keep going farther. "But just as He who called you is holy, so be holy in all you do. For it is written, 'Be holy because I am holy.'" That's God saying that God is the Holy One. He's calling us to be holy. Okay, well that's kind of challenging. Well, at that point, the Christians were being persecuted. What does persecuted means? It means they were suffering for believing in Jesus. In some ways that was just being called names. At other times it was getting beaten, thrown in jails, and sometimes even killed. Wow, that's persecution. So in the midst of that, you might think, it's hard to be a Christian. But God is saying to be holy because He is holy. Check this out. In chapter 2, verse 9, it says, "But you are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special possession, that you may declare the praises of Him who called you out of darkness and into His wonderful light. Once you were not a people, but now you are the people of God." Because you are the people of God, you've been called to make the right choices, not to sin anymore, not to live like the people around you, but to live like God. And God is the Holy One, calling us to be holy. Wow, remember that verse we read at the beginning? In 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 12. "Live such good lives among the pagans," or among people who don't believe, "that though they accuse you of doing wrong, they may see your good deeds and glorify God on the day He
visits you. Because of the good example that we are, the life we choose to live, that we're kind and loving and patient and generous, because we do those things, we will stand out. And one day God will come back and go, that's my people. That's my kids. Because God is the Holy One. I think we can be holy, can't we, boys and girls? All right, back to you, Extreme Dude.
Dude, God is the Holy One. Whoa, that's super cool. I learned something new today. Well, all right, boys and girls, I'll see you next time on the Extreme God Story. This is Extreme Dude. See you later.